Welcome back. It's the New York Gun Guys podcast. My name is John.
My name's Taylor.
Taylor.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's going on, man?
Not much.
Guys, check us out, Facebook, Instagram, NYGunGuys. Check out the other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find a podcast. I don't know if anyone can tell, but I do have a cold.
Nah, I can't tell.
I don't think I have the vid. I got the jab.
Hope not.
But, you know, they say that you could still get it and pass it if you get the jab. So,
Of course.
But I went, like, what, a year and a half, 2 years without getting the vid.
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel okay.
Yeah.
I have no fever.
Good.
I warned you.
Yeah, I know.
And what was you told me not to spit in your mouth?
Yeah, don't spit in my
I
mouth.
don't think that would have ever come up. Like that was, that wasn't on the agenda.
No. It wasn't like I showed up here at 8 in the morning. Hi, John. No, that's not how we greet each other.
We're good over there on all the tracks.
Yes.
Okay. Not because once we like hit the record button, we did
Right.
the whole intro, and then you were like, shit, we're not recording
That would
anything.
be really shitty if we just did a whole episode and just, it didn't record. Oh, the lens cap was on,
Yeah,
kind of bullshit.
yeah, that's funny. But we are good, right? Because I can't see it from here.
Yeah, we're good. We'll move your fucking chair.
Oh, God, okay. Standing is hard. What are we talking about today? This is enough. You're just looking at me like I'm an asshole.
You are.
Okay.
I show up here at 8 o'clock, and this motherfucker is still in bed.
Dude, I worked yesterday.
So did I.
I don't care about you.
Lazy fuck. Anyway.
Before we get into this, I want to give a special shout out to somebody who found us.
Oh, yeah. So, Mr. I Killed Versace. Shout out. Hello. How you doing?
Yeah, found us on the, what is it, the NYGunGuys?
No, well, it's a part
or
of
not the NYGunGuys.
No, it's a Discord that I belong to.
Right.
And the username for it is NYGunGuys.
Right.
And I was told we were talking about there was a Supreme Court thread in there about the Supreme Court case, that's in the Supreme Court, obviously, duh. And I said, oh, shameless plug. We were talking about some other shit, and I said, oh, like, shameless plug. My buddy and I run a podcast. He's like, oh, I knew it was you. I listen to you guys all the time. Love you guys. So, little shout out.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it. So, what are we talking about today, though?
Well, the biggest issue that's facing the gun community right now is the case in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Which is basically like Heller 2. It's challenging New York's regime to provide a atypical reason to carry a gun for self-defense. Basically, the state of New York denies you in most counties. Some counties are more lenient than others, but on the whole, New York State says that you have to show an atypical need for self-defense above this just a standard I want a gun for self-defense argument in order to have an unrestricted license to carry a concealed firearm in public.
Right. You need to show cause of why you should be allowed to carry.
Right. But that kind of goes against, in my opinion, the spirit of the Second Amendment, the original meaning of the Second Amendment. And, you could argue that it goes against kind of the American tradition.
Well, yeah, it's keep and bear arms.
Right.
It's not keep and, if you have a good enough reason, bear arms.
Right.
It's keep and bear arms.
So I listened to the whole oral arguments. John did not, because he's a lazy schmuck. So I'm going to...
No, it's not because of that.
I sent it to you, man.
Yeah, I know you did.
I listened to that shit in the car.
I'm busy. I'm a busy boy.
In the car?
I'm a busy boy.
Nah. Anyway, so I listened to the oral arguments, and I gotta say, it started off really shaky. I'm just gonna say the pro-gun attorney and the anti-gun attorney. I think the pro-gun attorney from the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, his last name was Clement, I believe, and then the other lady, there was like her name was like her title was General something. So I'm just gonna say pro-gun attorney and anti-gun attorney. The state attorney is anti-gun. Let's just say it that way. Pro-gun attorney started off kind of shaky. I felt.
Why? Why was she shaky?
He was shaky because.
Why was she shaky?
Well, that's a different reason.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember specifics, but basically, a lot of the liberal judges were grilling him about shit, and he was relying on historical context to justify the need of self-defense being a constitutional right. But they got into this weird argument about like the subways, and granted, the plaintiffs, they live upstate. They live in I forget it. It's kind of near Albany, Troy area. It's not like a totally rural community county, but it's kind of like intermediate, they said. But basically, it got onto the topic of like subways, densely populated areas, because that's going to be the big issue. New York City, because unfortunately, New York City
Right.
happens to, in my opinion, control the rest of the state when it comes to a lot of things firearm related. So they were kind of citing all these old English laws and shit from like the 1800s and 1700s, which, you know, most people will think, well, why is that relevant? Well, they have to establish a basis for why these laws were put in place. So a law that was written in 1911, which is the Sullivan Act, which is what this law is basically, was based upon laws and court cases that were from the 1800s, because that was very recent to then. And then those cases were based upon shit from the 1700s. And then those cases were based on shit from English common law, because at that point we weren't America yet. So you kind of have to go back and study the history contextually to learn why these laws were written, see if they're valid, and then adapt them to the changing times that is now modern day America. So they were grilling him on a bunch of shit, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's a little shaky. You could tell his voice, he was a little like, you know. But then when they got to the anti-gun state attorney, she had this whole argument basically that like her whole argument was, we just don't want more guns on the streets. That's basically, and she even said it at one point, basically almost like that. They said, well, what's your reasoning for not wanting guns in densely populated areas? They're like, well, we just don't want more guns out there. And the Supreme Court justices actually, I think, grilled her harder than they grilled Clement, the pro-gun attorney. But the liberal judges, like Sotomayor, I don't think grilled the state attorney. Sotomayor was like an idiot. She sounded like a concerned mom. She was just like, well, densely populated areas, and what about on the subways? And these Supreme Court justices, most of them, I think they feel like anyone who carries a gun is just going to pull it out in the heat of the moment and just start shooting at one another.
I mean, they're going to look at it from both sides.
Right.
And they're going to play devil's advocate a lot. And
Well, they did.
Right. And I guess they have the quote responsibility to do so, because they do want to hear both sides. But
Yeah.
like you were saying, to just assume that anybody who has a firearm is just going to rip it out of their, holster and just start firing indiscriminately into a crowd.
Well,
that's
that's
what illegal gun owners
exactly.
do.
And they even brought that up. One of the justices was like, how many guns do you think are out there on the streets? Or how many guns do you think were recovered from the streets in New York City? Or how many are out there? And they're like, I don't know. And they're like, well, illegal or legal? And he's like, there's a lot of illegal guns out there. But what about the legal ones? And then the argument that the anti-gun state attorney was basically saying, and one of the judges said was paradoxical, because she was saying that, well, you should be able to get a carry permit in a rural area as opposed to a densely populated area. And one of the justices was like, well, don't you think you need it more in a densely populated area than you would in a rural area? How many crimes, how often are you going to run into somebody in the middle of the woods versus on a densely packed subway? Or,
Right.
And even one of the justices was like, they're looking out for the common person, a dishwasher, a nurse leaving the city, like working late, taking the subway at 12 in the morning, 1 in the morning, and really needing that firearm.
I think it's important to note here that not everybody. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee, and
Which
it's
is
like
the
it's like
worst
it's like
thing.
breaking shit up now.
That's the worst thing when you have a cold, man.
Well, no, it's nice, man. It's like breaking up the mucus. All that mucus dripping down the
back of your throat.
Yeah,
Throat shots.
So I think it's kind of. I think it's important to note that when if they throw out this whole like you need to show cause to carry, it's not like everyone is just going to get handed a gun.
Right.
You still need to want to have a gun. You still need to be
Go
able
through the
to
process.
pass a background check. You still need to be able to pass for the actual permit to carry for the CCW, because they're not just going to start handing CCWs out.
No.
Especially in the city, they're not going to do that.
I was talking to some people about it, and basically my thought is that if this is ruled in our favor, where they say may issue states, because the judges were using the language may issue versus shall issue. 47 states have a shall issue, and the rest of them have. 43 have a shall issue. The rest of the 7 have a may issue.
A may issue is they don't have to give
right.
you one. Okay.
You have to show atypical need, just cause, whatever. I was talking with some people about it, and basically, if the court decides this in our favor, that if you meet all the criteria, then they have to give you a permit. Self-defense is a valid reason to carry a concealed firearm. The state can still say, you know what, we're going to do this our way and still try to fuck you. But then people were like, well, certain politicians and everybody needs to be held accountable for breaking the rule or whatever. And then I said, well, this is gonna have to go through the courts. This is gonna be lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. If the state does not go with the will of the Supreme Court and recognize that self-defense is a constitutional right, they're going to be challenged in court by all these lawsuits. The city, upstate, Long Island, all these counties. It's going to take time and it's going to take years. Just because they say self-defense is a constitutional right and states cannot deny that of you, the state could still say, all right, well, you need to do this, and this in order to meet our criteria.
They can make it very difficult. They can say, okay, no problem. It will be, a shell issue?
Yeah.
But it's, we're going to make it really difficult.
It's going to be $1,000 for the permit. It's going to be a 6 to 8 month background check. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. This is all just hyperbole.
And I've said in the past, they're going to look at this like, they're going to look at everything you've ever done, and they're going to say, okay, you know what? Even if this guy has a speeding ticket, we're going to deny it.
They could deny you for every
because they're going to say,
thing.
oh, you know what? He's got a speeding ticket. Oh, he's got 2 speeding tickets. That shows, disregard for the law. No, we're not going to issue it.
So, and
I don't think that would happen in like Suffolk County and Nassau County more so than I think it would happen in the city.
Right. So I'm reading, I pulled up an article from the New York Post from November 7th. And basically, NYPD Commissioner DeMont Shea basically is against this. He's against the Supreme Court ruling in favor of a shall issue system. But then he's in the article, he cites I just clicked on an advertisement accidentally. Jesus Christ. He cites a criminal act to justify his opinion. He says Shea cited recent cases of innocent bystanders hit by stray bullets as examples of why guns should be controlled, including a 26-year-old woman who was shot while pushing a 2-year-old daughter in a stroller in the Bronx Thursday night. So again, an illegal gun used illegally in a criminal offensive manner is not the same as somebody carrying a firearm and only using that to protect their life, property, or somebody else's.
There is a difference,
right.
But what they've kind of failed to, distinguish between is how they wrote it is a little weird. There is something to be concerned about people basically getting into a gunfight, whether it's a good and a bad guy or a bad guy and a bad guy, and random bullets flying through windows and killing people. Right. It's not the first time it's happened.
No.
So that, I would say that's a valid concern. Just the fact that people could, if you're a good guy versus a bad guy, there will be bullets flying in different directions.
Right. Well, is that a good enough? Is that a good enough example to say we have to infringe on rights? No, it's not. Public safety is a concern, but just because you live in a city with a dense population doesn't mean that your Second Amendment rights are null and void. You have to balance, okay, New York has a magazine capacity of 10 rounds. Do the criminals follow that? No. But as a law-abiding citizen, you're going to have to follow that. And that's unfortunately what's going to happen. If somebody pulls a gun on you and has no regard for human life, even in a densely populated area, what chance do you have other than pulling out a gun and maybe shooting one round at the person so you could escape? You know what I mean? Oftentimes, a firearm is pulled and there's no shots fired. It's a last resort.
Yeah, if you're a good guy.
If you're a good guy. Yeah, I'm not talking about the guys that, hold the gun over the car and just fucking spray and, whatever. That's irrelevant. But my issue is they're lumping criminals, actual criminals, in with law-abiding citizens. And
but he's not saying that law-abiding citizens are going to shoot indiscriminately. But what he is saying is when you miss, inevitably someone is going to miss their target.
He goes on to say, even well-meaning people, his quote, even well-meaning people who may wish to carry guns, we see guns stolen and heated arguments escalate in a hurry. And from our viewpoint, we would love for it to be the NYPD and law enforcement to be the ones carrying the guns.
Right. Now, you have to look at it this way. A lot of people in New York City have criminal backgrounds. A lot of people have psych backgrounds. These
and
are all
people
people
not be able to possess or carry a firearm.
Exactly. These are all people who. So when he points out saying, heated arguments can rise and can turn into like an armed conflict. There's always a chance of that, right?
It can.
There's always a chance of that everywhere.
I feel that mostly the people who go through the trouble of getting a permit to have a firearm, especially in New York City, because even though the Supreme Court
there's
case,
people with concealed carry permits in the city right now, business owners who have CCWs,
right? But it's not for self-defense.
No, but
that's the thing.
But they get used in self-defense.
They could be.
I have read stories where they are.
Yeah.
And those people have even gotten their CCWs back.
Yeah.
So if we're trusting a subset of people to carry,
right,
and we, you know what I'm saying? This goes back to the same like here in Suffolk County where you can have a carry permit to go from work to home. So they trust you enough to go from your home to your business and back, but they don't trust you to go from your home to the gas station to work and back.
And that was an important part of the oral arguments, basically saying because the two people have restricted permits. They have one I think has a work permit and the other has the target sportsman hunting, whatever. But they're saying that I could be trusted to carry a firearm for all these other activities, but I can't go to a public place. What's a public place? How do you define a public place? What's a sensitive area? What's not a sensitive area? So it's really bringing to light a lot of the inconsistencies in the law. And, I'm not one for all these, social justice, everything is racist bullshit. But the Sullivan Act was actually founded on, discriminatory and quasi-racist principles. It was and they even cited it in the Supreme Court oral arguments that it was brought about to suppress labor unions, which were mostly immigrant and African Americans who carried guns in these labor unions and protests.
There's just no reason why somebody should not be allowed, who's a law-abiding citizen should not be allowed to carry a firearm in self-defense.
Right.
There's no reason.
And based on Heller...
And any other argument, some innocent person might get killed. Well, what the fuck? What about the person who would have had that gun? They're going to get killed.
Right.
So
not everyone's going to be carrying a firearm.
Correct.
In a city with like 8 million plus people, there's not going to be 8 million plus guns.
Correct.
That's the whole thing. It's going to be a really small subset, especially in New York City. The case does take place in an upstate county, but a lot of it was focused in New York City because it's going to be applied statewide. And every jurisdiction in the state, if it's deemed by the Supreme Court to be a constitutional right, is going to have to abide by this.
It is a constitutional right.
I know it is. Yeah. Everyone listening knows it is.
This should be such a clear-cut, black and white fucking...
Well, pretty much, they kind of said it was. They kind of basically said, look, we already went over all this shit in the Heller case. Self-defense, the Heller basically decided that, self-defense in the home is a constitutional right. And limited self-defense outside of the home is also a constitutional right. That was what was deemed in Heller. But what wasn't deemed in Heller was the way you go about issuing permits for self-defense outside the home. So
limited self-defense would be what?
On your property or...
No, outside the home.
Right. So the home is very specific because it applies to the Fourth Amendment and all these other things, where the government can't really intrude on your home, inside your home. Property is different.
Right.
They can, if something's in plain view on your property, they can come and do things. It's different than in your home. So with Heller, self-defense outside of the home was very limited in certain circumstances, obviously deemed constitutional.
Right.
So now this is going to be extending into public places, and and it's challenging the regimes that issue these permits for showing a need. 43 other states are shall issue.
Right.
Like, why the fuck is New York like this? Other densely populated metropolitan areas, Chicago is shall issue, if you believe it or not. Like San Diego County is shall issue, if you believe that or not, in California. Right. Many of these other places with very strict laws are shall issue.
Right.
And you don't hear about the fucking problems of law-abiding people doing heinous shit. You hear about criminals, you hear about gang members, you hear about all this other bullshit that happens with a firearm. And this is my biggest fucking problem, is they lump the criminals into the law-abiding citizens category. Anyone with a gun, they view as the same person, but it's clearly not.
Right.
So that's my issue. But anyway...
Well, they view the gun as the issue, not the person behind the gun. Right? So it's like, well, we can't have more guns on the street. Well, it's like you want less criminals with guns on the street.
Exactly.
I mean, think about how many people walk the streets with legal firearms and it's never an issue.
Right.
But you have the subset of people who are out there to do harm to other people,
I don't remember the guy's name, but basically he was like another attorney that was on the state side, the anti-gun. His whole argument was, well, America has a tradition of regulating arms, so we must continue that tradition.
America had a tradition of slavery, too.
Right, yeah. Do you think we need to fucking continue that shit?
So that's fucking irrelevant.
Just because there's a tradition of something doesn't mean that it needs to be continued into the future.
Right.
And that was his whole argument.
That's ridiculous.
The pro-gun attorney Clemente, after this, he had a chance to rebut everything they said. He fucking destroyed them. He was saying that this court case is bullshit, this state is bullshit. Like, he went on and just slayed
Who said this?
The pro-gun attorney. So after the pro-gun attorney went first, and he was really shaky.
Right.
Then they did the anti-gun side, the state side, and then they're like, all right, pro-gun dude, you can rebut. And he just is like, well, all these court cases you cited are horrible examples. This state was bullshit. The courts threw
Right.
that shit out, and he was just going on and on, basically
He
destroying
roasted.
it.
He roasted.
Yeah, he roasted him in the end.
Fuck
he came back
yeah.
strong. And I was
Fuck
in my
yeah.
car sitting on the Cross Bronx yesterday going, fuck yeah.
I'm going to listen to it then.
Sitting in traffic. Bro, at first it's really shaky.
Yeah.
It's gonna
You
be
said
a
it's
little,
like 2 hours long.
Yeah,
right?
it's 2 hours.
my
It's
God.
worth
See,
it,
It's
dude.
hard to put aside 2 hours.
in your fucking car.
Yeah, but dude, like I've been sick these last couple days, headaches. Like the last thing I want to do is have to listen to something and pay attention to the fucking road.
I don't
I'm
know,
just
man.
saying,
I don't know
and
what to tell you.
I can't listen to that shit at
Well,
work.
then,
you know?
like, go look up like the cliff notes of it. I don't know. Like,
No,
there's
no,
probably a highlight
No,
reel.
I feel a lot better. I think when I'm doing my errands today, I'll
There's
stick it
probably a
on.
highlight reel of it online somewhere. And, but yeah, so this is going to be a big deal. I'm really hoping that it sounds like it's going to be decided in our favor. Because ultimately, well, the whole thing is Heller is the biggest fucking thing. Heller happened in 2008, and they're going to be using Heller as case law for this. They've gone over all the fucking previous court cases, all the precedents to decide that self-defense in the home is a constitutional right. So your constitutional right, if it's a constitutional right, it doesn't matter if it's in your home or if it's outside your home.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm just fucking fired up, man.
I would be, look, I'd be ecstatic if it went in our favor. I would also be fucking shocked.
Well,
Because you and I and everybody else listening understand that this is like black and white.
right.
But you do have people who are very liberal, and
Oh, yeah.
there's people who are liberal on the Supreme Court. So
Yeah. Luckily, there's a conservative majority. Kavanaugh sounded really good.
Kavanaugh is fucking such a shake box. Dude, if you look at the shit that he's voted against on the he has recently been more liberal than he has conservative.
Well, on this issue,
That's
when
an
he was
issue.
talking to the different attorneys, he sounded very pro. This is a right. You know what I mean? Sotomayor sounded like a soccer mom. She's fucking useless.
Sotomayor is a liberal.
Yeah. Kagan also. Amy Coney Barrett also. She sounded very pro gun as well. Clarence Thomas was also sounded pro gun, but he was like, look, what's the issue here? What are we looking at? Like, he was more factual. I feel like he's going to determine that this is a right just based on the way he interviewed people. So it was kind of annoying because there's no video allowed in the Supreme Court. There's no photos or videos allowed.
Right.
It's only audio.
Right.
So the pro-gun attorney, every time a justice asks him a question, he's like, oh, thank you, Justice Thomas. I'll answer this question. The anti-gun attorney didn't identify who she was talking with most of the time. So it kind of was like, well, I don't know who this is.
Right.
So you kind of have to listen. All right, this is this person. Clarence Thomas, he's got a very distinctive voice. So does Amy Coney Barrett.
Right.
Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, some of the other people, they kind of sound similar. But it was very exciting to hear, and especially because it's New York, which arguably has the most strict laws when it comes to this shit.
Right.
So I happen to think that it's going to be ruled in our favor. I really do.
Yeah.
So, and normally I'm kind of a pessimist when it comes to this shit. Sometimes I'm just like, dude, there's no change in it. We're fucked. This, and this. Like, the SAFE Act is never going away.
Right.
This, so this actually kind of gives a lot of hope. I don't know.
We'll see. I mean,
It's going to take time. And like I said, even if it is decided in our favor, it's going to take years because there's going to be lawsuits against the state. They're not going to change shit right away. They have to draft all new legislation to get rid of the Sullivan Act. They got to do all this shit. So it's going to take
policy.
Yeah, it's going to take fucking years. But it's going to be a land.
Years.
It will.
But
It will. Court cases, they're going to drag their fucking feet through the courts.
yeah.
And then a lot of judges aren't going to want to, because there was a lot of quibbling between the lower courts, and that's why it got bumped up to the Supreme Court. So the lower courts don't want to fucking deal with gun issues. They really don't. So that's why it got bumped up to the Supreme Court.
Right. Well, it's a constitutionality issue.
It is, but the lower courts, they didn't. It was worded a certain way in the oral arguments. Basically, they were like, the lower courts said that the Supreme Court needs to make a decision on it. They didn't want to deal with it.
They do.
No, I know they do, but the lower courts didn't want to make a decision on it.
Yeah. Well, because the lower courts don't want to be responsible for fucking changing everything throughout an entire state.
Well, they should.
Yeah, but they don't want to be.
Well, the Supreme Court is, like I said, I feel pretty positive about it. Just listening to the oral arguments, the way they grilled the anti-gun attorney, the state attorney, or attorney general, whatever fucking, I think they called her general, whatever.
Right.
But give it a listen if you haven't already. Coley and Noir on YouTube put up a really good link to it.
What does he have to say?
You know what he has to say.
No,
basically.
I mean about the oral arguments.
He didn't put a reaction video to it yet. He just said, hey, this is the audio from it. Give it a listen. It's worth it. So I feel like he's going to create a video, like maybe reacting to it. So we'll see. But there's also another big court case that's going on right now.
Let me ask you this. Do you want to do that in a different episode?
No.
You just want to go right into it?
Right into it.
Okay.
We're going to roll right into it.
Could have did two.
We'll do another one on a different one.
Oh, all right. Well, I want to talk about this guy too.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. You can introduce this one.
All right. So
just like all the other ones.
Yeah. So another court case that's making its way right now is the court case against Kyle Rittenhouse, which happened in 2020. That the shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where he killed 2, injured 1, or rather vaporized a bicep of 1, and it feels like forever ago that shit happened.
This kid is like, how old is he? 17?
Yeah, 17,
and he's
18.
got 2 bodies.
I mean, I wouldn't think of it that way,
dude,
but
like, I'm just saying, imagine being 17 and being and having killed 2 people, like fucking A.
A lot of people fucking have,
dude. But not only like killed 2 people, right? But then like have like a fucking shitstorm wave of fucking craziness just like fall on you.
Yeah,
and this could really change the way people like look at certain things, and
right,
because like this kid is gonna be found not guilty.
I think so. Now, granted, we've done an issue. We've done an episode on this issue previously, and John and I both agree that he ultimately should not have been there with a firearm.
Yeah, I forget the name of the episode.
I do too,
but
it's a while ago.
It's an earlier episode, and we all agreed that obviously he should have never been there in the first place, right? Because the best way to stay out of shit is just to not be involved.
Right.
But he was there.
He was there. He thought what he was doing was the right thing.
Well, I mean, he was there to help people, right? He was there to provide first aid and protect the building. I don't know what his nexus to the building is.
It wasn't his building. It wasn't anything. Listen,
but there is video of him like running in and like giving first aid to people. I think he's an EMT or something.
I have no idea. He was cleaning graffiti off of a statue and all this bullshit. Listen, I happen to think that he shouldn't have been there, but he was, and I can't change that. The biggest thing, though, was there's a video clip of it going around right now, was the defense attorney grilling the guy
so funny
whose bicep got blown off. Basically, they showed a few video stills, and he's like, all right, you approached Mr. Rittenhouse, you had your hands up, and you had a gun in your hand. He's like, yeah. And he's like, only when you pointed the gun at Mr. Rittenhouse did he shoot you. And he's like, yeah. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, no, I think so this was the prosecution's witness.
Yeah.
Being cross-examined.
Right.
And the defense attorney says, so when you had your hands up, that's when the defendant, Rittenhouse, shot at you. And he said, no. And he said, oh, so it was when you pointed the firearm at Rittenhouse. That's when he fired. Yes.
And then the best part was you saw the attorney just put his head in his hands at the fucking table.
Oh my God, he fucking face palmed. That was the prosecution.
Yeah, the prosecution.
Oh my God, the DA basically just fucking face palmed because he knows this is bullshit. This is a politically motivated court case. It should have never been a court case. There's multiple videos, angles, and everything. You could see that this kid's getting beaten with a fucking skateboard. These guys are shooting at him. There's people testified saying that they heard the guy who was ultimately killed. He said, if I find that kid alone, I'm going to fucking kill him. Right. All these fucking things that just point to that guy actually had the intent to kill Rittenhouse.
Right.
Just so many things are pointing to his, to his defense, showing that he's not guilty. But this is politically motivated. He's a young kid. He was in a state where he doesn't live.
Right.
He had a firearm, which he crossed state lines with it or something. There's like a weird bullshit.
Well, it's like the state line was literally like 10 minutes away.
It's still a state line.
But he didn't bring a gun across. It was like given to him
had it there
or some shit.
That's not even what he's on trial for.
No. And people are calling him a terrorist and a white
He's
supremacist.
not a terrorist.
No, I know this. I'm
Dude,
just saying
he's not
people...
a terrorist. But people are also calling him an American hero, and he's not that either. Okay, he's not an American hero. People are like, this Kyle Rittenhouse, American hero. I'm like, dude, he's not. He's not an American hero because he went to a riot and fucking killed people. Like, it's not, dude. Like, he's not an American hero, but he's also not a fucking terrorist.
It's an unfortunate circumstance that happened where people died.
Right.
And
no one, but there's two parties to blame here, right? There's Kyle Rittenhouse who went somewhere he probably didn't belong, to a situation where he probably also shouldn't have had a firearm. Like he has no connection to the building. I understand he wanted to help people, whatever, right? And then there's the guy who was there who also wanted to kill, who he also was carrying a firearm illegally. The guy who was on the stand had an illegal firearm.
Oh, was illegal?
He was not. Yeah, he had a firearm, or someone had a firearm, and they were carrying it illegally. He wasn't.
I don't think it was the guy they put on the stand because otherwise
I think it was the no. That's
it
not
was
true.
the other guy.
If that guy had a gun, they could exchange immunity for testifying because technically he would be incriminating himself. So they could say, okay, look, we know you're going to incriminate yourself by saying, you were here and you did X, Y, and Z, but we're going to give you immunity in exchange for your testimony.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
That happens all the time.
I didn't hear,
or else he could plead the fifth.
Yeah.
Right? So, like I was saying, he's not an American hero because he went out to a fucking riot and shot people. I mean, some people definitely think that.
Right.
I don't think that. But was he wrong in the self-defense? No. Like, he was not wrong in self-defense. Should he have been there? Probably not.
I just love that in the court case, they said there's like a lawnmower going outside.
It's a fucking beautiful day, and we have the window open. There's a lawnmower, but it's all right.
I forgot what I was. Oh yeah, there was a photo of where his arm got, shot, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is where my bicep got vaporized." And I'm like, and you see it in the video. It's just like a pink. It looks like a pink balloon exploded.
I mean, dude, don't shoot at people or fucking don't try and kill someone. I mean,
don't point a gun at someone. You had your hands up, and then he was.
Oh, so he was the guy.
Yeah,
he did have a gun.
Yeah, he did.
It was an illegally carried firearm.
Oh, okay.
The firearm might have been legal, but he was not legally allowed to carry that firearm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I read.
So he had his hands up. He had the gun in his hand. All he had to do was just walk away. But then he's like, I made a split-second decision to try and take the gun from him or whatever. And then that's when I got shot. And I'm like, well, yeah,
you fucked up.
You could have just walked away, and he wouldn't. Oh, he said something about like re-racking the gun too. It's just bullshit.
Dude, this kid is getting dragged through the mud. Good luck in. I mean, this kid.
Life.
I mean, well, here's the thing, right? This kid's not going to go on to lead a normal life. He's going to write books.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be on all sorts of he's going to be interviewed, and he's a public speaker. Like he's. I mean, honestly, he'll probably do well just because he's been through it. But he's still going to have to live with the fact that he killed 2 fucking people. He's always going to be that. He's going to be like the most recognized kid. Everyone who hears Rittenhouse, dude, that's such a fucking that name. Like,
it's a household name,
right? So like, if this guy goes anywhere, it's like, oh, my name is Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh, you're the fucking guy who killed those. You're the terrorist.
It's like if your last name is Dahmer. Everybody just knows who the fuck you are.
Right. I'm just saying, like, this kid's like not fucked for the rest of his life, but he's gonna have to live with that every single day of his life, just like knowing, like, everyone around him is gonna know.
Do you think he's gonna get jail time?
For what?
Well, if they acquit him on, let's just say, murder, but they get him on some other bullshit.
I don't think they're going to get him on anything.
No? Okay.
No. Well, I mean, they can get him on the bullshit gun charge. It's going to get probably thrown away.
Probably.
They would have already brought that against him.
True.
But they're trying to. They know this is fucking bullshit.
Right.
They know. I mean, okay, maybe they get him on the gun charge. I think it's a misdemeanor, right?
I believe so.
So it's not even going to make a difference.
Yeah, community service and a fine or some bullshit.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be an interesting. It's an interesting time and place in America right now.
Yeah, I just think that there's no way he can get convicted. If you're a juror and you're hearing these fucking people say, "Yeah, I pointed a gun at him. Yeah, the guy I was with said I'm gonna fucking kill that kid when I find him alone," and then that escalates. All right.
Yeah, keep going.
And then that escalates into. Yeah, it didn't make much of a difference.
That shit is loud as shit. God damn.
And then they escalate that into, an altercation where the guy has a gun and one guy eventually gets shot and killed. How can you look at that and say, yeah, that's Rittenhouse's fault?
Right. It's an interesting time in America. Post COVID, some people are actually saying this year is way worse than COVID in 2020 was.
As far as crime?
Quality of life, economy, foreign policy.
Well, obviously, fucking Biden is kind of wrecking the place.
You mean Brandon?
Yeah, let's go. So, what's it called? I mean, if you look around, like, it really seems like Biden's just not all there at all.
Oh, of course not.
My butt's been wiped. I sent you that, right? Did I send you that?
No.
He was like walking up to reporters. This was a while ago. He was walking up to reporters, and there was like, I guess he was near like Marine One.
Yeah.
It was really loud,
Helicopter.
and fucking, he just walks up and he just says something, and I doubt it was this, but it sounded like he said, "My butt's been wiped." I'm gonna pull it up for you, and I'll show you later, dude. It's so funny. He's like, "My butt's been wiped," and they're like, "Okay," so they like go on to their questions, and he's just. It's ridiculous.
Well, now to continue with the Joe Biden bashing.
No, we won't. I mean, everyone knows.
Yeah,
you agree with him or you don't. I mean, it seems like it's hard to agree with him at this point. But there are people who support everything he's doing. It's crazy.
Ugh. That's all I got to say with that.
I mean, you got the AOCs of the world out there, and
even they're getting on his shit about all this climate.
some of them
shit. Yeah, even
they're.
they're
I mean, AOC is a Green New Deal human, so it is what it is. I don't even know what to call them anymore. There's like fucking radical
idiots.
But,
yeah.
Well, I don't know about idiots, but
you haven't heard much from the squad lately. As they like to call them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call them idiots.
I do.
Everyone's got a fucking different opinion, man.
You could have a differing opinion, but you could also be a fucking idiot.
You can be an idiot.
And that's what those people are.
You can be an idiot, but I don't know if I would classify. I mean, I try not to fucking name call.
Oh, I do.
I mean, they name call us.
Oh, yeah.
We're fucking, what they say about everybody.
Yeah. Racist, terrorists, white supremacists, all this bullshit. And, at what point, if you call somebody a racist, is it just not...
Well, if you call everybody a racist, then it like really takes away the sting of the word, right?
Exactly. There's true racists out there. And that's the funny thing. Like, actual racists do exist in the world and in this country. And just calling people who differ in opinion than you a racist.
Well, the problem is, like, everything becomes a race issue. Like, with the gun shit, they'll be like, their ultimate argument will be like, well, we can't allow everyone to have a gun because that's racist. And it's like, wait, how did we get here? How did we get from, like, everyone's going to be allowed to have a gun, but somehow it's racist if we give people firearms? Like,
I actually think it's less racist because...
Obviously, it's less racist.
Well, here's why.
Everyone should just... I mean, like you were saying, gun laws were built on racism.
They were. And honestly, I believe that people who live in densely populated, let's just say urban areas, you could... It sounds stereotypical to say, but oftentimes the communities of color, different ethnic groups, whatever, and oftentimes are disenfranchised by the fucking people that's supposed to represent them. They live in these communities, and there's a lot of issues with those communities, and they could really benefit from self-defense with a firearm. And oftentimes they're denied the right because of where they live and because of where they live and basically how they live in an apartment, in a dense area, and if they have to ride the subways or public transit. That's another thing, by the way, with the Supreme Court. They were talking about all these subways, and it's like public transportation. Does your constitutional right end on public transportation?
Right.
No. If you take the bus or the subway, you're still entitled to the same rights as everyone else who's in a car or who flies by helicopter or any other fucking... Oh, by the way, the helicopter. Did you see the news story about the helicopter that landed in Brooklyn?
No.
Oh, my God. It blew up. So a small R-44, it's a small 4-person helicopter, landed in an empty lot in what neighborhood?
I think I saw a picture, but I didn't read it.
What neighborhood in Brooklyn was it? I forget, but it did a flight. It picked up people from Brooklyn and flew them to New Jersey. The NYPD aviation helicopter followed them to New Jersey, landed, and questioned the guy. And he's like, I didn't do anything illegal. Like, it's none of your business. It's not your jurisdiction. It's the FAA's jurisdiction. Like, what the fuck?
Okay.
So everyone was in the comments section. It was a New York Post article I was reading, was basically saying, like, man, traffic's getting real bad, huh? Like, Uber stepping up, like, all this shit. And,
so he landed and then took off and left?
Yeah, in an abandoned lot in,
right.
I forget what fucking neighborhood it was.
Wow. So is that is technically the FAA, right?
Right.
This guy.
And
Well,
you know what?
technically, if you have permission to land there, but isn't that space like a no-fly zone?
No,
I thought like all of
it's
New York,
weird
or is
for-
it just Manhattan?
no, it's weird for helicopters.
Hmm.
Crown Heights, that's where it landed.
Okay,
So
that's fun.
triggered a police pursuit. So
police pursuit.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, the guy is right. It's the FAA. It's federal.
yeah. So the pilot came out after he landed. The pilot came out. There was a couple there. He let the couple out. They just casually walked on by and went about their day. The pilot hopped right back in, and after about a minute or so, it floats up and flies away again. So yeah,
That's funny.
so it was crazy because it has nothing to do with, I mean, the police.
Well, they have a duty
technically?
to. I mean, they could ask anything they want.
So the FAA is looking into the incident, but off-field
Basically-
landings aren't illegal. If you as long as you don't break any airspace laws,
As long as you have permission from the person who owns that lot too to land there.
yeah, but that's kind of secondary. I mean,
Well, that's a civil issue anyway.
yeah, that's a
It's not
civil
really-
issue. But helicopters take off and land from Manhattan and everywhere all the time in
Right.
designated areas. But
Right,
off-field landings are not illegal.
Right.
I just don't know the laws pertaining to it because they're saying, "Oh, densely." This is what made me think of it. Densely populated areas. Everyone's going on that lately.
Who cares?
Well, exactly. They're, the same thing with the Supreme Court talking about firearms in
Right.
densely populated areas. This guy landed a helicopter in a lot, in a quote densely populated unquote. I wouldn't land a fucking helicopter in that fucking lot. God knows what that shit kicked up. I work in aviation and I saw that. I'm just like, ooh, it's like driving through like a fucking like field in your car that could be filled with nails and shit. And you just don't know,
Yeah.
Helicopters create downwash which kicks up shit and it could fucking cause a little damage if you land on a dirty field or whatever. But listen, I don't know, man. I just thought it was hilarious. I saw the picture of it. I'm like, holy shit, that's cool. It's like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. A lot of people, I see a lot of videos lately of like people getting questioned by police officers and like them, but yo, you don't have the right to question me. It's like, dude, like, first of all, anyone can walk up to anybody at any time and just ask you a question.
Yeah. That's not illegal.
Right. I mean, an officer at any time can walk up to you and say, hey, like, what are you doing here?
Hey, how's your day?
Well, they could just say, hey, what are you doing here?
Right.
And it's like a right of inquiry. Like
Right.
you can, like, an officer can ask that.
It's not even an
You could-
officer.
and-
As a person, you could do that.
Yeah, but
So
I'm just
you're-
saying, like, people be like, you don't have the right to question why I'm doing what I'm doing here. And it's like, okay, then that's it. Like, that's the end of it. Like, you can choose not to answer.
right.
you know.
You just walk away.
Yeah, you could walk away, or you could stand there and you can just say, I don't want to talk. It's fine.
Right.
Like, it just sometimes I see shit and it's just like, these people are so stupid. It's like the guys who do like First Amendment audits on cops, and they like walk up to them with a fucking camera in their face, and they're just like, what's your shield number, officer? What's your name? And the guy's like, and the officers, I was just watching one the other day. There's just two cops standing they're in the parking lot of a station house. I don't know where it was. It was not in New York anywhere. And the guy walks up and he's just like, what's your shield number and your name, officer? And the guy's like, what? Like, what do you want my name and shield for? Like, fuck.
Right.
And he's just like, what's your name and your shield? And he's like, my name's on my name tag. Look. And he's just like, you have to tell me. And he's like, okay. He like tells him,
A lot
and then
of it is a power trip.
it
thing.
is a power trip. And like, dude, like, there's just so many people in the comments like, oh, the cops should be fired. The cops should be fired.
I've seen it both ways.
What the fuck?
I've seen it both ways. There's a channel called Long Island Audit, and this guy, what he does is he goes into public places, so town halls or city halls,
Right.
and he just films. He walks around and films.
Well, here's the
which
thing.
It's not illegal.
Well, that's not true. Sometimes there are buildings you are not allowed to film
Right.
in. If you go into New York City and you go into a station house,
Yeah.
like a precinct, you are not allowed to film there. You are not allowed.
Well,
it is against the law to film
Right.
there.
That's New York City law, but these
But
places.
it doesn't. It's not. It's still, you can't. The reason why you can is because like people like this guy doesn't have the right to show, because there's prisoners in there. It's not, you don't have the right to show someone else's business.
Right. So
that's
in
a big
these
reason.
areas, you're only allowed to film, like, I don't know about the city, but Long Island, like in a lot of these like town halls or whatever, you're only allowed to film like the public entranceway, the lobby
Right.
area, non-sensitive areas they call it. So
Sure.
this guy
right.
just walks in
Non-sensitive. Right.
and says, "Hey, I'm an independent journalist. I'm getting footage for a story."
Right.
And a lot of times people confront him and they are nasty to him and they're rude to him, and then the cops get called, and oftentimes the cops have to tell these people like, "Hey, he's not doing anything
Right,
wrong.
yeah, of course.
It goes both ways. I've seen it both ways where these people instigate law enforcement and they
Yes,
do
they
things.
definitely do.
But I've also seen it the other way where these people have interactions with law enforcement and law enforcement infringes on their constitutional rights. So it goes both ways.
But a lot of these people don't always know. Like,
No,
for
they
example,
don't.
you go into a precinct and
Yeah.
you film, and they're like, "Well, I can film here because this is public property." It's like, you're wrong. Like,
Right.
you're not allowed to film here. Like,
I don't know about
things
the rest of the
change.
state.
Things
Yeah,
change from
depending on-
place to place,
yeah.
obviously.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, sometimes I watch these videos of like people who are like in a car, they won't give their license because they don't feel like they're wrong,
Right.
and then they
I
get
saw-
dragged out of their
I saw
car.
a good one, man. I saw a good one. So
Right.
California has a law where they set up agricultural checkpoints,
Mhm.
where basically because California provides, I think, like over 40% of the nation's agriculture products or some shit, like some crazy number.
Interesting. Right?
They have in place a law where they establish checkpoints where if you're bringing agricultural products into the state, like let's say you're traveling from Nevada to California and you have agricultural products, you have to declare them to this agricultural officer. Nothing is going to happen to you.
Right.
They have to determine if they're legal, if they're illegal, if they have pests, because pests can destroy crops.
Right.
It's in the law, in California law, that it's not a search, but it's an inspection.
Right.
Which there's a distinction in the law because an inspection provides for the better good of the public. If somebody brings something into California and wipes out all the fucking crops, well, the country's not going to eat. Okay, so this dude thought it was funny to go through this checkpoint a few times until he got the response that he was looking for
Of
from an
course,
officer,
of
right?
course.
And it was him and his kid in the car. And this fucking douchebag, I watched his video, and the woman was like, hey, do you have any agricultural products in the car? He's like, I don't consent to searches. He's doing the whole fucking bullshit. And the lady's like, well, it's not a search, and it's an inspection. And he's like, I'm just going to go on my way. And she's like, you have to tell me if you have any agricultural products in the car. It's a real easy question. Do you or do you not? And he's like, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just going to drive on my way. And he's like, what's going to happen? And she's like, well, you're going to be stopped by a state trooper up the road, and you're probably going to be arrested because you're breaking California law. He's like, it's my Fourth Amendment. And he's going on and on and on and on, right? So he just like, I'm going to drive. And she's like, okay, I'm going to call a trooper. Like, have a nice day. Like,
Right.
So up the road, the trooper stops him, and he's like, well, you're being stopped. You're being detained right now for not stopping at the inspection point. He's like, I did stop. He's like, you were not compliant. You did not,
Right.
answer the questions. Everybody coming into California has to go through this checkpoint. Apparently, it's like a thing. And he's like, this is my Fourth Amendment right. I'm not rolling down the window. I'm not this. And the cop's like, look, I don't want to have to break your window to bust you out of here. You're actually breaking this law. What law did I break on this?
Yeah.
And dude, him and his son were arrested and actually charged criminally. And I'm
Good.
like, good. The
Good.
guy was a fucking moron.
But here's the thing: do you think that you should be stopped at the border and fucking inspected?
The border, well,
I'm just, you know what I'm saying? From state to state.
state to state is different.
Well, he was coming state to state.
Well, he was, but this
Right.
is an agricultural thing. All he had to do was.
But what
be
I'm
like,
saying is, do you think that that's right?
I don't think it's
In
right.
a free country, do you think that you passing from state border to like through a state border should be stopped and said, "Do you have this in your vehicle?" Do you think that that's okay?
I think
Beyond
that,
the fact that it's a law, beyond the fact of anything, do you think that should have even do you think that's okay?
okay, it's kind of a weird answer, but in this case, I do. Here's why. I don't think that anybody should have an issue with just answering, hey, do you have any agricultural products in your car? Because if you do, let's just say you do have something that is a violation or whatever. At these checkpoints, they don't arrest you for it. They just confiscate it and they send you on your way.
So
Okay. It's in the interest of
every law is in the interest
I know.
of the whole.
And this is I'm normally the kind of person that says like fuck off.
Yep.
But when it comes to certain things like that, I just think that as people, they're not out to infringe your rights. They're just here to make sure that no fucking crops get fucking wiped out because some idiot has something that he shouldn't. I think that the checkpoints for border protection, so, the CBP has border protection inside the United States. They have those checkpoints.
It's a mile off the border.
I think that is fucking bullshit.
So I don't think that the government should be able to stop you and just
It's the
start
state
questioning
government.
you. Government's the government.
No, I know, but
I just don't think that the government should be able to stop you and say, "Do you have X, Y, and Z in your car?" And if you should be like, fuck you. Like, I don't fucking now. I don't think. I mean, it's a law, right?
Yeah, it's a law in
don't
California.
go breaking the law like
Right.
this guy did. You're a fucking
Right.
idiot, because you're gonna just get in way more
The
trouble.
law has
but
been-
I'm saying it probably should have never. It shouldn't even be a law.
Well, if it's a law, then I don't think it's the worst law that could be out there.
No, it's not the
you know
worst
how
law.
I am when it comes to a lot of things.
I'm just surprised that you're okay with a government official stopping your vehicle against your will. When you did not. There's no probable cause for them to stop your vehicle.
Right.
On a traffic stop, I can't pull you over just because I want to know if you're carrying something in your vehicle.
Right. Listen, it's one of these issues where it's kind of like I hate to go against how I am, but I think in this case, it is.
I'm
it's
really
okay.
surprised.
I've been
I'm
to
really
California.
surprised.
I have family there.
I'm really
and-
surprised.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not just a fucking one trick pony with this
I'm just
shit,
not.
man.
I'm just not totally cool with it.
I mean, I'm not either, but I understand it. Let's just put it that way. I'm not cool with it either, but I understand it.
Sure, I understand.
So, like I said, if you just say no and you go about your way, now the CBP checkpoints inside the United States, I have a
Right.
big fucking issue
Right.
with, because they ask you, "Are you a citizen? What business of it is yours?" I'm inside the United States. Fuck off. That's
Right.
where I have an issue,
Well,
because
I've
that's
seen-
actually a right.
I have seen those videos of those
Right.
checkpoints, and people just say, "I'm not answering questions," and eventually the officers are like, "Just like have a good day," because
Yeah.
they know
It's bullshit.
because they could ask you that question, but there's only a certain amount of time they could really hold you there, unless they have reason to
Right.
believe
That
that
you're-
you're transporting people or whatever. Then it's kind of just like, you know what, fuck it, like.
Yeah.
So yes,
And that I think that is bullshit. But
Yeah,
like
oh,
I
yeah.
said, I think that this law with the agriculture, because when you come into the United States, you can't bring in fruit, you can't bring in certain food
but
products.
this is
No,
within
I
the United
know,
States.
but because California produces so much food for the U.S.,
Yep.
I understand the reasoning behind it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm more reasonable to that.
it's a reasonable law, but
Right.
I was just asking on, as a citizen of a free state, should you be stopped and have an officer ask you to basically demand to know what's in your vehicle?
And you know what? You could say no, and if you say no, then unless they have a reasonable and articulate suspicion,
Which
Right.
which a lot of people are concerned about because they can basically make it up.
like if you're driving a truck that says Sal's Produce and they ask you, do you have any agricultural products? And you say no. Well, obviously your fucking truck
funny,
says
you
produce.
fucking open up the truck could be empty.
Right, it could be. But you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't agree with the law, but I
Well, no,
understand
you agree
it.
with the law.
I agree with the sentiment of the law.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with them being able to, but I'm more willing to comply with that than I am a border checkpoint or anything else.
Right, but
Just
I've also had
because-
this same argument about things with certain gun laws that they were trying to pass,
Again.
the hold period, right?
Right.
Where they wanted to extend it. I was like, well, that's an understandable law, and you're like, no, fuck that.
That's
it's not-
bullshit.
Well,
that is bullshit.
Well, that's kind of like how I feel about that.
But that
it
is
doesn't
bullshit.
matter. But
Listen, you getting a gun is an individual constitutional right. I think that
You're
because
still allowed
we've
to
had,
get it.
We've had, unfortunately in the U.S., we've had instances of agricultural decimation by invasive species, by people that did irresponsible shit by letting fish go in rivers that they shouldn't have, by introducing things like the gypsy moth. I think in a 3-block radius, I forget where it was, in a 3-block radius, it costs over millions of dollars just to eradicate this one fucking moth from a 3-block radius. I think it was in Illinois. I could be wrong. When it comes to the sustainability of the country, when it comes to the independence of this country,
Right.
we get a lot of shit from other countries, man. We get
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of food, produce, agricultural shit from other countries where I think we should be a lot more self-reliant. So in order to ensure our self-reliance as a country, I think that reasonable things like, hey, are you bringing anything to the state that could cause our crops and to fail and kill the ability to produce food?
right.
I'm not so against that. And I'm against government intrusion, but I'm not so much against that because so many people's jobs, lives, the economy depends on it. You know what I mean? You traveling
that
down
could-
the
that could
road
get
with
out
a
of hand.
firearm has nothing to do with anybody else.
Yeah,
And I know it could get out of hand. And
That
it's
can get out of hand,
California.
right.
And it's been deemed constitutional. An agricultural inspection station
Mm-hmm.
has been deemed constitutional by the California courts.
Right.
Again, it's one of those things where you're like, I'm kind of conflicted. Like I said, I'm against government intrusion. I understand the sentiment of the law. You could be a dick and not comply with it, but ultimately it is a law and you're going to get arrested for it.
Right.
But like I said, I've been to California a bunch of times. I'm actually going next month. I'm flying. I'm not driving. So
Are you going to bring anything agricultural?
no, no, I have no need to. But again, I understand.
What about
that-
the bean? Yeah, you like that.
That was funny. We call my son. His nickname is Bean, but you know.
So you will be traveling with agricultural products.
With a bean that's going to be running around the airplane. Oh my God.
Terrorizing.
I'm not looking forward to that.
You're going to be that asshole who brings a 1-year-old onto a plane. I hope you realize that.
I wish.
You're going to be everything that you hate.
I don't hate it, man, because I understand. I get it.
Dude, there's nothing worse than a screaming child on a plane.
Yes, but you know what? That kid has never felt anything like that in his life. He's never been experienced anything like that in his life. Yeah. You'd fucking cry if you all of a sudden you left your home and you're fucking stuck in this tube. The pressure is getting in your ears. It's loud. You're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have to sit. My son doesn't want to sit for anything. All he wants to do is get up and walk around.
Yeah.
And this is going to be interesting.
Well, no one's going to say anything to you.
Good.
I know you just said, like, I wish someone's going to say, dude, no one's going to say anything to you.
I know, because people have most people,
yeah.
I'm not flying
And if anybody
Spirit.
did have, I have flown Spirit, it's not that bad.
I know, but every fucking video I see from, like, fights and breakout, it's all Spirit.
Because you get
the fucking fights in the terminal are the best. They're picking up the podium and fucking throwing them at each other. Oh, it's fucking great.
If anybody says anything to you,
I know.
Just ignore it, dude. Yeah. Don't get involved in anything. You'll be the next fucking viral video. Yeah.
I'll tell them to lick my sack. How's that sound? I haven't said that
That's
in a
classic.
while.
Yeah, good.
I miss saying
I'm not cutting that one out.
Good, thank you. I tell people I'm a lot more vulgar than I am off the mic than I am on the mic. I'm very I don't have a filter, and that's one thing that I've had to get used to talking on mic.
Yeah.
Because I say some really dirty and heinous shit.
Yeah, you do. Fucked up.
Listen, man, I think that you should be able to express yourself.
You can express yourself, but I'm sure someone might want to listen to this episode in front of their child in the car, and when you hear things like "lick my sack," that's an issue.
It's funny. I listen to stuff in the car, and my son.
Your son doesn't realize yet, but like it's just words mumbling to him. He doesn't understand.
Right.
But when you start to get to a certain age and like they understand what "lick my sack" means, and it's like, or they're kind of like they kind of know, and then like all of a sudden you're listening to it and you hear Taylor say that, and then it's like, well, Daddy, what does that mean? And you got to fucking explain.
Well,
oh my God!
It's when somebody puts their
stop.
tongue on your yam bag and licks.
Stop.
Well,
I'm gonna hold this episode for a week while I edit it.
Oh no! Don't do that.
Okay.
Just put a beep in there.
No, that's harder. I tried doing that because I thought that'd be really funny, like fun to do. Like,
have a beep button,
dude. Yeah, but it's like I can't figure out how to do it.
There's probably something I don't know. I'm not the video or audio editing type.
I'm not editing this one. They're just gonna have to deal with the sack talk. But I think that's all we got time for today. We're approaching an hour. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you come across us in any of the subreddits or Discord chats, give us a shout out, and then we maybe will return the shout out.
Yeah.
We love reaching out.
I do.
Reaching in.
I like reaching out to people. We actually had somebody, I think, reached out in an email recently, and I was talking with them.
Oh, another one?
Yeah, hold on. I'll pull it up. One
okay.
sec. Hold on.
Does he want his identity?
I don't know. Let's see.
Can you open that window? Open that window.
I will.
I'm fucking dying in here.
So a guy named Grayson. I'm not gonna
Grayson. Let me see
his last name here. As John wants to read that, I'll open.
I'm not gonna read it out loud, but thank you, Taylor. Oh my God, dude, how are you not sweating in here right now? God damn.
Because I'm not a fat piece of shit.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad I stopped the spoiler alert for Squid Game.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, first of all, have you watched Squid Game yet?
Yeah, I have.
Dude, it's so good. Dude, we won't talk about it. Did you like the ending, though?
No.
What
we went over this.
Oh, my God, dude, the ending was so good.
Okay, if you like Squid Game, you have to watch Alice in Borderland. It's on Netflix. It came out because it's a similar concept, but it came out way before Squid Game. It was based on a Japanese manga. Dude, it's really good. It's really good.
Write it down. Is it in a different language?
It's in Japanese, but they dub it.
Subtitle. Oh, okay, cool.
You can either have sub or dubbed. But yeah, this guy Grayson, he's
called like
Alice in Borderland. Grayson,
nice.
He's a young range officer at a club, a hunting shooting club that he belongs to. And,
on Long Island?
No, upstate. Basically in Amsterdam. He actually wrote because he said, if you ever, buy a deuce and a half upstate, you could park it on your property. And I'm like, my man. So shout out to Grayson. Hello. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. That's awesome.
But yeah, so like John said, this pretty much all we have time for today. Like us on Facebook, Instagram.
Yep. Like us, Facebook and Instagram,
You do it better than I do.
NYGunGuys, and check out the other episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find a podcast. And reach out, say hello.
Yeah,
we
we
love
like
it, and we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. So, once again, thank you for tuning in, and as always, stay safe.